You are listening to Missed Apex Podcast. We live F1. Welcome to Missed Apex Podcast. I'm your host, Richard Reddy, but my friends call me Spanners. So, let's be friends. This is our British Grand Prix race review, dominated by the glorious British weather. The rain fell, and people were making predictions about whether it would rain or not. It's a fool's errand. You can't do that in the UK. You look up in the sky, and it's either bring a rain jacket or umbrella out or not. And on those days where you think, yes, I should bring an umbrella or my waterproofs, it can rain or not rain at any time. So we will, of course, discuss the rain, that penalty, that podium, those pit stop calls, those spins, that crash, and that other one. Oh, and the one with the teammates. And it was a race where things kind of happened. It felt like things happened, but then there were long periods of time where nothing happened. You know, I turned around. Matt was in my house. I turned to Matt and was going, could we get some racing? Are we in any danger of actually seeing cars on track? And in the end, I think it was a fascinating chapter of Formula One. We are an independent podcast produced with the kind support of our patrons and partners. We aim to bring you a race review before your Monday morning commute. We might be wrong, but we're first. I'm joined in the shed by Matt Trumpets. Hello, Matt.
Well, hey there, Spanners. We're closer together than usual, I have to admit.
Yes, you're in my house downstairs, and we can actually hear each other's voices from opposite rooms, but hopefully that's not coming up on the stream. We are both well-fed, well-watered. We've just had my wife's delicious roast dinner, but we've also had the unique experience of watching a Grand Prix in my living room together, and you have seen me going full spanners while watching a race.
I had no idea you'd be that passionate about their attempt to break the all-time record for safety cars deployed in the event of humidity being over 50%.
I do get like irrationally angry about stuff. So Kyle decided it would be funny to joke in our group chat that they were going to start under safety car. And I just went off. Like my flash to bang was very short. And I was like, if they start this under a safety car, it's a joke. F1's finished. And then you were like, no, he's kidding. He's kidding.
I think it might have been Jeansy, but yeah.
They're both of them. They're the same. They're both the kind of people
really
who would do
terrible.
That. Yeah. But it was an enjoyable Grand Prix. And we're sort of reuniting the panel from the live show last night in Milton Keynes. So we are definitely going to put out a bunch of content around that. It was me. It was Matt. It was Alex Van Gene. And this fine gentleman, Scott Stuffey Tuffy. Hello, Scott.
Hello. Thanks for having me on. I can't wait to talk about everything that happened in this race because I can't remember everything that happened in this race.
It's very detail heavy, isn't it? And I think in the olden days, we'd have got very wrapped up with analysis. You go, well, on lap 17. Oh, hang on. I'm giving away who used to do that. But you know, there was a lot of key strategic elements. I think we'll handle the strategy side specifically on its own and like what was the right decisions in and around the race. But I think the two big subjects are obviously the stuff with the McLaren drivers, what was going on with Verstappen, the horrible, terrible day from Leclerc, and I think a missed opportunity for Hamilton. But really, I think the big story, of course, is Nico Hulkenberg. And we have been tracking and watching Nico Hulkenberg's career. He was a superstar youngster that came in. There were so many results that nearly happened. But finally, after, I don't even know how many years it is, glory.
200 races, more than?
269, something like that.
Insane.
He was 238, but I mean, he's been around for, at least as long as Lewis Hamilton, hasn't he?
But long-time listeners of the show will say that I always figured that Nico Hulkenberg had signed a deal with the devil. Like, you can be a handsome, rich racing driver, you can be in Formula One as long as you want. However, the curse is that you will never have a podium. So I think by getting this podium, this means he's broken his deal with the devil, and this will be his last year in Formula One.
Wait, are those pigs flying outside your window, Spanners?
Why is that?
You know, when pigs fly is a classic American saying for something that's never going to happen.
Right, what he's never going to...
When pigs fly. Yes.
Okay, Scott.
I was just going to say, I've never been so happy to see someone beat Lewis Hamilton.
No, I know.
At the British Grand Prix, and a German as well. Like, how can you not be happy seeing Nico Hulkenberg?
Okay, I'm going to draw the line there, Scott. I was happy when it had finished, but during the race, I was still pushing for a Lewis Hamilton podium because I'm a patriot and because I'm not disloyal. I think you make your point. I'm going to phone the King's department, and I'm just going to go ahead and report this real quick.
I know. It's just we don't get so many feel-good stories in F1.
I know.
So many guys don't get what they deserve, or they don't end up in the right seat at the right time. Some of them don't even get the opportunity in F1. And of course, Hulkenberg's had more than an opportunity. But I mean, come on. And who needs to start in Q3 or on the front row to win a race? Just start from the last row, because Hulkenberg has started 20th at Austria and here 19th. And he's scored more points than Max Verstappen. Okay, yes, he got taken out by Antonelli. But still, the fact that he started on the back row in the last two races and scored points and got his elusive podium, I mean, what a feel-good story.
So there's a general point here where I said to Matt, actually, I've sort of fallen out of love of watching qualifying. If I've got nothing else to do, I do want to sit and watch qualifying, but the tension is gone for me, because people can make different choices between one lap pace, qualifying pace. You know, for example, Max's miracle lap, really, it looks like he was setting up for a dry one lap pace and then hoping that he could kind of stay ahead of everybody by being fast on the straights. And obviously that didn't work in the wet. But really, the qualifying, it's a bonus. So you don't want to see your favorite driver starting 20th, but third instead of fourth doesn't matter. Second instead of first doesn't really make as big a difference as it used to.
Yeah, and partly I think that's down to the regulations, but also, I mean, you just sort of have to ask yourself, if you want qualifying to matter that much, you essentially have to make it very difficult to pass so that driving defensively is worth a compromise.
I disagree with that to an extent. I think qualifying is still really exciting.
No, yeah, sure.
I think the approach this weekend from Max and Red Bull, I think I do really appreciate what Red Bull do with their strategy, and when it comes to the risks they take. They knew that the car was terrible on Friday, and if they stuck with that configuration, they were going to be nowhere come qualifying. So why not risk it all for that lower downforce setup? Yes, it backfired on them, but why not go for it? And I actually think today, and I'm sure we'll get to it, I think if he didn't have that spin and the issue with Piastri under the safety car, I think Max probably would have scored a podium comfortably here this weekend.
Ooh, I thought we were going to Hulkenberg direction.
Yeah, no, I know. I don't know why. Scott, you've John-o'd us. You've taken us off. You know.
Well, we spoke about Max, but qualifying I think is still also relevant and important, because there's only been one race other than the second race where the car that hasn't led into the first corner has won. So qualifying is still mega important.
So let's ask Matt then. You're the strategy guy. Like, how on earth did Hulkenberg end up in P3?
I can't believe you've asked me this question with so little time to prepare. However, no, and I had spotted it just based on my own race notes, but essentially what they did in the very first stint, the stint that began on the enters as it was drying, was they pitted Hulkenberg 2 laps before the leaders. So lap 9 versus lap 11. And he got the benefit of fresh, soft tires on a mostly dry track while everybody was losing time with their burnt enters trying to find and cool them. Then everybody pitted. And he was essentially at that point had made up almost all of those places. The second thing they did right was they pitted him correctly for the slicks, which was lap 42. You see people like Lewis and Alonso going earlier, but they lost huge amounts of time because the track really wasn't to a point yet to be able to take advantage of that. So there at the end of the race, the overcut on those slicks worked. At the beginning, the fresh enters gave him a huge advantage. Plus, there was like fully a third of the grid that just thought they could start on slicks and it would be fine. And they were very, very, very wrong about that. So the combination of that is the thing. But if you look at Sauber's strategy over the last 3 races, Canada, Austria, and this race, they have just been absolutely on it.
Yeah, it's almost a shame for those guys. They can be putting operationally great performances in, and like Alonso always says, that was the best race of my life, and he came in 17th. And maybe he was right that the best race of his life was with a McLaren Honda. And you can kind of wonder, well, with Hulkenberg, how well has he been doing? How well has he been driving? So he dispatched Magnussen comfortably. A driver that I don't think anyone thought was terrible. People rated Magnussen. He's had good stints at teams. He's done well against decent teammates. But Hulkenberg, I think he's been written off because he's had a few seasons in the wilderness. Not beating Ricciardo was probably low-hanging fruit for him that would have done his reputation wonders. But there's a reason that people keep hiring Nico Hulkenberg and paying Nico Hulkenberg to drive their race cars. And it does seem like last season and this season, he's been putting these performances in, and you do need to combine it with just the right combination on track, just the right strategy. But how many drivers today put a wheel off or spun or pushed for a maverick, let's roll the dice from P7 strategy? And Hulkenberg didn't do any of those things. He just kept racing solidly. He just kept swimming, and everyone around him fell away. And he got, a glorious result that is probably the most deserved podium. It's the most deserved single podium as a reflection on career in history.
Yeah, and I think also what you're looking at here is the exact reason we were complaining. Why don't we have rookies? Why don't we have rookies? Why don't we have rookies? And then you look at this race and you're like, oh, there are no rookies left in this race. That's why the premium with this regulation set and the way the sport has evolved is putting more and more importance on experienced race car drivers and less just I am fast over a single lap.
Yeah, that Stake F1 car is so much better than it was at the start of the season. It was a unique year. We knew that there was going to be pauses in development, so necessarily the teams that got off to a quick start, Williams, are now being caught up by those who have chosen to just continue their development this year to try and get some more out of it. Stake is one of those. That's the fourth race in a row Hulkenberg has scored points in. This isn't a fluke from Hulkenberg. He has now got a car underneath him that he feels comfortable in. Yes, his qualifying is uncharacteristic for him because he's always been a decent qualifier, so his race results could be even better. But he had genuine pace today. Yes, the strategy was brilliant, and they've made great strides operationally with Jonathan Wheatley's appointment. That's definitely noticeable. He's used his experience with Red Bull, and he's changed that team very quickly. But Hulkenberg, his pace against Lewis's Ferrari, okay, you could look for the Ferrari wasn't particularly good today, but wow, like Hulkenberg managed that perfectly. As you said, Spanners, he could quite easily have had a moment, as we saw so many do in those closing moments. I mean, Piastri even had his moment. We saw George, so many did, and yet he's being chased down by none other than Lewis at Silverstone for all that podium, and he comfortably held him off. It was a great drive from him.
Okay, so I was definitely cheering on Hamilton to chase him down, but for his victory here, for his podium that he won, the key battle was to get past Lance Stroll, and I think Stroll in the end didn't have the weapons to fight off either of them. So it was a straight fight between Nico Hulkenberg and Lewis Hamilton for that podium. And if you go team by team first, I think Stake, they did the right tactic, going on to fresh inters and just treating it like, instead of waiting around, they didn't wait around for the rain to come hard, and they didn't gamble on slicks being too early at any point. They just did probably the most normal strategy, which is race quite hard on the inters and then get some new inters and get on with it. The other difference, though, I think more than that, because obviously Ferrari didn't quite nail the strategy. They had Hamilton in just that little bit early, and they went from Hamilton being right on the back of Nico Hulkenberg to 7 odd seconds back. So but the difference there was that Hamilton went off on his soft tyres. Hulkenberg didn't do that. So that contributed to the gap. And also Hamilton had a much faster car towards the end of that stint before those pit stops and was unable to get past him. So that was also well defended on track by Hulkenberg, who had previously overtaken Hamilton. Like there's really very little scope to call this some strange, freak, outlandish result. This is a driver and team working perfectly well for the maximum possible opportunity taken.
I would agree. But here, I don't want to lay blame on the driver. But I do want to point out the teams. So first of all, you mentioned Stroll. They get my vote. Stroll, Aston strategy, they get my vote for second best strategy of the race because he was running up in what, fourth place? It was amazing how well they took him and did that. And he really lost out at the end because he couldn't manage the tires at the end of the race in terms of their degradation, as well as the other drivers did. But back to Ferrari, they looked at Stroll going onto the soft tire at the beginning of the race and drew exactly the wrong lesson from it at the end of the race. Namely, and to wit, the soft tire was fast and worked well for him because it stayed damp and cold. But the conditions at the end of the race were the exact opposite. And pitting Lewis a lap early, even for the soft tire, guaranteed the overcut for Hulkenberg that he just put seconds into him as a result of it. So it's not down to driver skill, although Hulkenberg absolutely held his own under amazing pressure. I mean, imagine, finally, there's that podium right in front of you. Your laps from the end, Lewis Hamilton chasing you on soft tires in a Ferrari. He held up. But at the end of the day, this was the team and the strategy that nailed it, and it was Sauber, not Ferrari.
Yeah, Lewis had that big moment, didn't he, out of the pits? I mean, you saw the onboard, and there was so much spray that came out of the pit lane and pit lane exit. So there's no way for the cars to avoid it, and you just get caught out by obviously the braking into turn 3. If he didn't, I think he lost at that time. I think he was around 2 to 3 seconds behind Hulkenberg at the time, and he said it's a bit conflicting, to be honest, because I was looking at the data, and Lewis did seem to start to drop off on the inters in the second phase, and he said he came in too early, which yes is kind of an agreement, but would he have still caught Hulkenberg? I mean, I don't know. It would have been close, but I don't think it would have been as clean cut as maybe what Lewis is making out of it would have done, because that Ferrari was just, that first stint in particular was shocking how much they dropped off. And I'm surprised Ferrari was slow to react in that first stint, because really that's where Lewis's podium chances were ruined today, was in that first stint by them waiting too long for that pit stop. I don't really know what they were doing sleeping at the wheel there.
Yeah, well, also, Matt, the choice between medium and soft between Hamilton and Hulkenberg was interesting.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. At the end of the race, this was a choice that Stroll made at the beginning and was genius. But the conditions climactically was very different at the end of the race. If he'd been on the medium tire, which I'm pretty sure they had one because they didn't deploy it anywhere else. If he'd been on the medium tire, we might really have seen a different result, especially if they both pitted the same lap. But fundamentally, the overcut was working because the slick was barely the right tire for those conditions.
Yeah, and just an amazing overall sort of cap. I suspect that's probably his last podium. You don't get many races like that. But yeah, well done, Nico Hulkenberg. I was impressed that he waited all that time to get a trophy. He was like, right, no, that trophy's ugly. That trophy doesn't look fun. Lego trophy. Yep, I'll take that home to my kids. Those trophies did look pretty cool. And also, I like the fact that he was fairly reserved on the podium. He wasn't like a kid jumping around. He was like, yep, soak it in. And it's like for him. If he goes crazy and becomes performative, that's almost for everyone else. But it looked like he was very much up there for himself, but not very good at spraying champagne. That skill seems to have completely withered away. But at least well done to him for finding where it was. and then in the green room as well, he sat down there. Oh, this is a bit strange. I just have to listen to Piastri moaning and saying why he got a penalty and how he didn't do anything wrong. But yeah, definitely, I think this week's Thing of the Weekend award is going to be very, very short, as we all just say Hulkenberg, and then move on to the Bad Thing award. Okay, let's go on to the McLaren story. So, really interesting race between these two guys, and it was definitely a race of two halves here. Because I, as someone gunning for Norris nominally this year, Piastri looked dominant in a class of his own at the beginning of the race. Scott, the first 17 laps, I thought he was so far and head and shoulders above the whole pack that even after the 10-second penalty, I was saying to Matt, like, surely he's just got the pace to come back and re-overtake. I don't know why he was so much faster at the start of the Grand Prix.
Because he got clean air pretty quickly. Max was struggling. I thought I was rewatching Miami, to be honest with you, where he overtook Max Verstappen and then Lando gets caught behind Max, and by the time Lando gets past Max, he's already got a 10-second lead because he built up I think it was 13 seconds by the time that safety car
12,
eventually came out and closed things up. And yeah, I mean, if we had no further incidents, Piastri probably would have comfortably won this race because he had that lead. I don't think Lando, even though I think towards the end and as the race progressed, I think there's an argument there that he was the quicker driver. I don't think he would have built or bridged a 13-second gap to his team unless there was something horrible that happened in the pit stop. But yeah, he was tremendous, and that first safety car is really what unfortunately ruined his race. The second one, that's the one that unfortunately he built up that leverage. And it just completely was erased because of the incidents.
Well, look, this is a lot of the reason why Mercedes, even when they were dominant, would only build like a 5-second lap. You know, in the olden days, you'd have Vettel with his dominance at the end of 2013. He would build a pit stop, so that's a valid gap as well to go right. I can have a free pit stop. That's what Vettel used to do. When Mercedes were dominant, they would just go, right, let's just build up 5 seconds. And that was kind of a VSC pit stop kind of gap, give them a bit of margin. But it would also mean that they're not using any more tyres than they needed to use. So Piastri just bolting away and going to build that 12-second lap. You go, that's a really big lead. It was interesting that he didn't look behind him and go, well, I don't need to use more tyres. And I thought, well, when the rain came down, I was surprised that maybe Norris couldn't have gone a bit longer or didn't use that tyre advantage. But I think, with the increased amount of rain, they wanted fresher tyres for them both, and that neutralised that battle. Obviously, Norris was fighting Verstappen as well. But yeah, I did feel, right, this is why I felt for Piastri, because the reason the race was safety card is just, it's the most frustrating thing in modern Formula One. We're now getting to the point where tactically you should be going on to wet tyres. Lewis Hamilton said, this is full wet tyres. And then they go to the safety car. And it drives me mad. I think part of the soul of F1 has gone with the fact that they cannot go to a monsoon tyre and go racing. Scott, then Matt.
It's just one reason, visibility. It's not that they can't. It's just the fact of it they cannot see. Look at Isaac Hadjar. Isaac Hadjar went straight into the back of Kimi Antonelli. Now, you could say, yes, it's a rookie mistake, but also the stewards have even accepted that, well, they couldn't see each other. Like, he's heading into Copse Corner, and then all of a sudden, Antonelli's there. So these cars are the largest, heaviest, widest in F1 history. The majority of the downforce is generated from the underside of the car. By the time we get to the point where the conditions are for wet tyres, they're calling out the safety car or they're calling out a red flag because the drivers just cannot see for health and safety reasons. And that was shown today with Hadjar.
So our non-partisan video editor, Steve Amy, Australian editor, is in the chat saying, why did they call a full safety car for wet conditions and not use a VSC? Matt, which would have been fairer on Piastri. He earned that lead.
It would have been fair. But if we're talking about wet conditions, what Scott is referencing there is the fact that with more downforce from under the floor, you have more diffuser expansion behind the car. And that's where the moisture is coming out of the airstream and directly into the face of the driver. So you say here, this killed his 13-second lead. And you're right. But at the end of the day, the heaviness of the rain that came later would have eventually killed it anyway. So in no way did this, as much as I'd like to yell at the safety car for ruining it, if you look at the whole evolution of the race, there was going to be a safety car. And the reason they don't do virtual safety car is even though there is a reduction in speed, it's still high enough to make visibility for the trailing car uncomfortable. And it's a safety thing. The reason they're doing it, because the aero regs create this situation to begin with, and because they won't do the one thing that would really work, which is a heads-up display with an infrared camera, which I think would be cool, but for some reason they just won't listen to me.
I heard you saying that to my son. I heard you saying that to my son, and it would work. You could definitely do some kind of thing that picks up where the other cars are on track and puts that in a heads-up display. I would actually like to see virtual mirrors like that as well. The technology exists to give the drivers in F1 that what we have on sim racing and in iRacing, which is why I don't use the little tiny mirrors in the corner because I would just be turning in on people left, right, and center. You get a big bar at the top that's kind of similar to what you'd get when you're driving your road car. And there's no reason why you can't have a camera on the back and just have that at the top of the driver's screens. I think that would lead to better racing because if you think about it, in the olden days, you could turn your head a lot more. You could see side to side. You could even lean your head towards the mirror. Now they're low down. They can't see anything. And they've only got these tiny shaky mirrors. Give them the technology to see all around 360. And I think we get better racing. But another point of why a virtual safety car is sometimes preferred over a full safety car is if the marshals need to do anything, a safety car bunches them all up. So all the cars are on one part of the track. And then the marshals kind of know, right, we now have 2.5 minutes to sort this, that, or the other. And you're right, Matt, there would have been some other point in this race where they were bunched up. But at that point, Piastri had spent his tyres on that lead. So therefore, he had earned that lead. And I kind of felt bad for him that lead had been squandered. So if he'd have got the penalty he got and somehow had still been rotating around with that lead, that would have been completely absorbed and he'd have still come out in the lead of the race. But that doesn't quite lead up to the controversial penalty. Oh, no, it does. The penalty came first, didn't it? Before Norris closing down the gap. So they're under safety car. Piastri suddenly brakes, and this is according to the stewards report, with 60 PSI of brake pressure. I don't know how much that is. I don't know what
59.2, but yeah.
Yeah, that's... Oh, thanks, Matt. That was worth interrupting the flow. Oh, go on. Yeah, 59.2. Sorry. Is it 59.21? I don't know what the maximum brake pressure is, but I know that Russell's the other weekend was like 30 PSI, and he slowed from 218 kilometers an hour to 58 kilometers an hour, which is about, 30 miles an hour. He all but stopped once the safety car lights went out. Scott?
Yes, yeah, he's slowed down 100 miles an hour. That 218 kilometers an hour is around 136. So he slowed down in an instant in wet weather conditions where there's still significant spray, and I think this is why the stewards have given this penalty as well and been harsh with this. Is I think if in dry conditions he might have maybe got away with it because the visibility would have been so much better. If you look at the onboard of Verstappen, I mean, he cannot see Piastri until literally he's come to a standstill. And then Verstappen then comes to a complete stop as well because he's like, oh, damn, I've gone ahead of Piastri. Am I going to get a penalty here? And I actually look back as Piastri's argument against this penalty is that, well, I did this on the first. It was okay on the first safety car. Well, I went back to have a look at it to see what speeds he was actually carrying. And, well, he reached a top speed of around 180 kilometers an hour. And he slowed to around 60. Okay. So that's significantly less. Now, Max still got caught out by it. And this is actually a little bit of a trait of Oscar of how he does his safety car start procedures. The one prior to this that recently comes to mind, I didn't go any further back, but Spain. The safety car at the end where Max, of course, lost his head. That safety car restart, if you look at the onboard, there was an onboard shot from his rear. Lando nearly also does the same. Lando nearly goes into the back of him because he likes to brake so dramatically when it comes to starting these safety car restarts. And today, he's just done it too much, and the steward clamped down on it.
Question for you, Scott. Why? Why is he doing that? Like, what's the benefit in doing that?
Just so that he can control the pace. I don't know. It doesn't seem like there is any benefit from it other than to try and catch out the guys behind, I guess. But then he's not getting initial. He then takes a while to then launch himself away. So it's not like he's stopping instantly and then going straight again with that concertina effect. So yeah, it was unnecessary. He's blaming the lights. I happened to brake at exactly the same time the safety car lights went out. I don't think he really has a leg to stand on, to be honest with you. And when he looks at the data, it's pretty slam dunk.
I love being wrong, but first. So I'm going to argue in Piastri's favor here. Sure. Even though I think the stewards weren't wrong to give the penalty, I think by the rules, Piastri actually didn't deserve one. And I'm going to start with your argument about his behavior behind the safety car. You yourself said he was slowing to about the same speed. His argument was, I was doing the same thing I did the lap before. The problem is the moment I made that deceleration, the lights went out, and so therefore the conditions were different. But I don't think he was driving erratically. He was kind of doing the same thing lap after lap after lap.
Okay, but Matt, I would argue that every time he did that, then that was erratic and unnecessary. And like, just why? You could just lift. You could lift and you could slow down like at a normal pace. Like if the safety car goes, you're the safety car, right? You're leading everyone out. You've got to control the pace. But don't you have like, okay, I can't remember who said it in the chat, but don't you have like a responsibility to not do something like brake suddenly down to nearly stopped?
And this is the thing. He was doing the same thing behind the safety car. When the safety car was the safety car, when the safety car lights go out, he becomes the safety car. And his argument, which is plausible, is that because the lights were on when I stepped on the brakes.
Yeah, but Matt,
I was not being erratic at all. I was doing the exact same thing.
No. I've got to argue. If he'd have done that, and the safety car was still being the safety car with the lights on, and he'd done exactly the same thing, I think it's still a penalty.
The difference is Max was accelerating because he saw those lights go out.
Scott.
So Oscar was doing the lights are on. Max was doing the lights are off, and it makes it look worse. But I have a second point here.
Hang on, can you just get Scott in to answer that point?
Oh,
first?
yeah, no, sorry.
Then make the second point.
I'd just say I disagree, really. I think it's got nothing to do with the safety car lights going out. I think ultimately he has done this at a much higher rate. It's more egregious because he is at over 136 miles an hour, at over 218 kilometers an hour. That's an extra 30, 40 kilometers an hour that he was doing it previously. Now, that's erratic. And as we mentioned, I do think the visibility, that is a key factor in this as well, is that those conditions, the stewards have not taken kindly to the fact of there's obviously a longer closing distance, or like when you're driving on the road and in the day, when it's raining, you have to brake considerably earlier. It's the same on the racetrack. To not have that opportunity when there's this much lack of visibility, I think they are more stronger on these sort of decisions.
Yeah, and that's why at the end of the day, I feel like the stewards made the correct decision, even though I really don't think Piastri violated the rules. Why did he brake so hard? Because he wants temperature in his brakes. That's entirely reasonable. Had he done it the lap before? Sure, yeah, fine. But at the end of the day, what the stewards are trying to do here, and this is where we do agree, is they're trying to discourage dangerous games behind the safety car. And he could have slowed to that speed, or he could have slowed down for that amount of time. But that slow speed plus the amount of time, they're like, nope, that's not a game we're going to accept.
Yeah.
I don't think it was erratic. I have an argument with the vocabulary. But at the end of the day, the stewards were right to penalize him, even though technically I think he has a correct argument under the current wording of the rules.
Okay, so I think what he did was extreme, right? And so I kind of like the innocence of, hey, officer, nothing strange was happening here. I was just out on a nice little walk, warming my tires and my brakes. That can't be it. He's gone out of his way to do something relatively extreme. Like, he's not stupid. Everyone knows that, under safety car, slamming the brakes on that hard, that's a little bit of an extreme tactic. So he's either trying to game the system, throw Max Verstappen off. We all accused Russell of trying to draw a foul. So I don't know why that accusation can't fairly be leveled at Piastri as well, because we all think he's just nice and sweet and whiter than white. In any case, if I was his agent, his driver coach, his manager, you go, why do you keep running so close to the line on this when it costs you race wins? So forget about whether the stewards are right or not. Why are you pushing it this close? You saw the controversy with Russell and you hit your brakes twice as hard and really went, okay, let's test the limit of the stewards. Well, you found it.
Well, this is it. I think actually the stewards were already aware of this, and they because the first time I mentioned under the safety car where he wasn't going as quick, Max Verstappen still got caught out by it and overlapped Oscar Piastri. Didn't quite go ahead, but he overlapped. That's against the rules. So, and I was waiting for an investigation. and it never came. So maybe the stewards were already aware of this. He's then done it again later on, and that's made them crack down on it harder and gone, no, naughty boy. We gave you a bye in the first instance. We're not doing it this time.
So the first thing I want to say about this is, I don't know if you saw the replay, but as they're coming around, you can actually see Max with both hands off the wheel going, classic New York, speeded up hand gesture, and Oscar accelerates. I think Max was getting really frustrated with how Oscar was treating his car to be ready for the restart. And I think that kind of played into it because of how fast he was going. And again, at the end of the day, the other thing I need to make a point about is that if I am the following driver and I'm just in a road car and I hit you from behind, I don't care what kind of stupid you just did. If I hit you from behind as the driver behind, that's my responsibility to avoid you. And I feel like that's getting also a little bit lost in this conversation.
Well, Max didn't hit him, so there's that, and Max didn't hit Russell either. And I think I don't think it's crazy to say that some of the drivers are really zoned in on Max and kind of sensing some vulnerability with the penalty points and starting to kind of exploit and play mind games with him. But that aside, it's quite, I know, maybe a topic for another day, but the restart strategies are really interesting. I was reminded of a Grand Prix where Bottas decided just not to go, and he just didn't bolt out. He was leading it, and he didn't go until the start finish straight. Come on, live chat, remember this? And then everyone behind was like, well, surely he's going to go in a second, and he never did, and there was a pile-up behind him.
Yellow.
Yeah, do you remember that one?
Yellow in COVID, yeah.
Oh, was it? Nice one. Go on, Matt.
And that was more than 10 car lengths between cars. Like, I was it Stroll? Somebody got like 30 car lengths behind and just was full throttle around the corner to where Bottas was dawdling down the straight. And that was where the big smash up came in, because the cars behind weren't also respecting the rules.
Yeah. So Mugello 2020. But there was also, there's also the thing of like let's get ahead with as many corners as you can, because then you have many corners with someone behind you in your aero wash, and that's more time for them to become unsettled and pull away. So in Spa, you'll often see people go from Blanchimont, and so that you've got to negotiate the whole bus stop before you then get a chance to go and try and overtake. So I do find the restarts tactics interesting. I think Piastri has flown too close to the sun and got that burnt. But my big disappointment out of this is we did not get to see another chapter of Lando versus Oscar. And that's the real shame to me, because whatever you think of what Piastri did and whether he should have got a penalty, it was a non-racy thing that not only decided the racy thing, it stopped racy things from happening. So, yes, you can say he lost the lead, certainly, from that pit stop, but you don't know what Norris would have done had Piastri not got a penalty. We didn't get to see how that race would unfold. And the only case I would put together for Lando Norris is, at the end of that long intermediate stint, Piastri was struggling and Norris looked very quick. That gap was down to about 1.2, 1.3 seconds before the team pitted Piastri out of the way. Scott.
Well, I mean, Piastri was thinking of us race fans. He did plead for that swap.
Oh, Scott.
On radio, if you think this penalty is unfair, then we should swap the cars. And he got a flat out no on the radio.
Do you think that the McLaren team fully thought, obviously they've got to come on the Sky and say, oh, a terrible penalty, we're appealing it. But some of the pit will probably went, oh, why did you break that hard? Come on. And the penalty came in and they went, oh, yeah. Hey, guys, do you think that was an unfair penalty? Oh, 100%, Oscar. Horrible. We will fight you. We will fight to the death. We will go into that steward's office and we won't come back unless it's been revoked or we're being carried on our shield. And then he goes, so if you feel that strongly about it, maybe we should swap the places. And they were like, no. We don't feel that strongly about it.
Come on, at the secret team principal dinners, Zach's going to play that as a voice note and everyone's just going to sit around and laugh at it.
It wasn't the best moment, because I think he's in the cockpit going, I messed up. I reckon part of him is like, I messed up. And then there's a little bit of cognitive dissonance where you just, the reality of I messed up and no, that was unfair is very hard to resolve. And he went through a lot of stages of sort of grief denial, all these kind of stages of and he'd never really got to acceptance by the time the broadcast had finished. So, yeah, it was a little desperate. And it didn't come across well, saying, well, if you think that it shouldn't have been a penalty, maybe we should swap. Can you imagine how that would have played out? Hey, Lando, you know how you're winning the British Grand Prix right now? Well, we've had a little chat here, and we've decided that Piastri's penalty was a little unfair. If you just go ahead and swap, that would have been horrendous. Like, Piastri's obviously, he's not thinking in that moment, you know.
I'm sorry, but how could McLaren deny us the drama of Norris's response to that? That would have been that would have been worth it. And then after the race, they're like, no, really, we're kidding. We didn't really mean it. We just needed your radio to get more airtime for our response.
Or put it on like a private radio channel where he doesn't know it's private, but they're recording his response and they're like pranking him, saying that they should do that. But yeah, the thing is, we don't know, you don't know if he hadn't have got that penalty, would Norris have been able to charge? Who would have got pit stop preference? Would Piastri have pitted first? Was there an undercut on? Was there an overcut on? Like, you just don't know how the rest of that race would have played out, which is a shame because I really, really wanted to see how the rest of that race would have played out.
Of course we did after Austria. Yeah. I mean, the entertainment they provided us there and how fair and respectful it was. We wanted to see more of that again here. But in defence of Piastri, though, and I'd be interested to know, I wish I had his number and I could have this conversation, but I wonder if maybe there were some games played. He knew he had that 10-second time penalty. The conditions are still a little bit slippery out there. Let's just slow down a little bit and just bring my teammate a bit closer to my dirty air where he may have a little bit of a wobble. We saw a few drivers go through. That was kind of going through my mind, and maybe I'm giving Piastri too much credit there, and he was
okay. Well, the thing is, though, he was losing his tyres in exactly the scenario where I would expect Piastri to lose his tyres compared to Norris.
I know. I'm just trying to be devil's advocate there, but maybe
I like it.
It was also planned. A la Hamilton, Rosberg all those years ago, there's nothing much more I can do other than just force him into a mistake where it's all his own doing, which, in fairness to Lando, he's got plenty of history of that already, isn't he? So,
yeah, I love this, but let's face it, the racing driver's solution to a 10-second penalty is to be 11 seconds ahead of your teammate. If he could have gone faster, he would have gone faster. The second thing is maybe what you're suggesting. Well, I can't get 10 seconds on him, but maybe I can get him in a duel and bonk him off track or put him in a spin where I get that.
Well, the team did say, like, push, let's try and build the gap now, and he wasn't able to. At that point.
But at the end of the day, if I'm Zach, I'm like, oh, this is great. I don't need to take my Prozac today. Just bring him in and there's no racing and we finish 1-2. Thank you very much.
So a somewhat muted chapter in Lando versus Oscar, but obviously Lando Norris very, very happy. He won't care at all about any of that controversy. He's just won the British Grand Prix. Lovely moment with his mum. So he goes straight over to his mum. And his mum, saying exactly what I say to my kids, because young people just let moments fly by. And his mum is looking him in the eyes and says, enjoy it. He's like, yeah. And she's like holding his helmet, going like, no, enjoy it. And that's obviously something they talk about, because I recognize that with my kids. Like, these moments go by, and the way to make these moments last a lifetime in your mind is to soak it up, to capture it. Like, you have to be mentally responsible for videotaping. Oh gosh, that makes me sound old. For videotaping those moments so they become core memories for you to recall. That was really touching. And obviously, I always like a home win, even when it's Verstappen. Believe it or not, a home win is very, very, very special in any kind of sporting context. And that was a big moment in Formula One. I think definitely overshadowed by Hulkenberg's podium, and also slightly dampened down because there's a mini asterisk of, you kind of got handed it by the penalty. Yes, you might have won it by yourself naturally, but there's just a little bit of an air of awkwardness and agginess. It's like if you win a game of tennis, but you had to make a call and you went, oh, that was out, and your opponent thought it was in, and then you feel kind of bad. I don't know. It's like it wasn't quite a clean victory, but he'll take it. Oh, did you see that someone hit him in the face with a pole? In the victory, someone climbed the fencing and the fencing came away and it hit him in the face and he had to go. I hope he's okay.
Little bit. I was actually watching it live. It was on Ted Kravitz's notebook, and the cameraman was right behind him. He was walking up to do the Lewis Hamilton thing where he shows a trophy over the fence, and the photographers were trying to get photos, and the photographer, at the exact moment Lando came up behind him, fell off and whacked him with his camera lens, and he's got a...
I think he took a bit of fencing with him as well.
Yeah, it was a bit of he got rushed away, and he's got another scar. He said on his, he did the fan zone thing afterwards on the stage. He's okay, but he's got like a couple of those plasters on his nose. So yeah.
So then that means it's guaranteed victory at Spa, right? With the cuts on the nose and the bandage.
Oh yeah, but can I
Remember
just say
last time the glass from the party?
Oh god,
yeah, that was King's Day in the Netherlands, wasn't it? That he got that from partying with a shard of glass. But Lando will not care at all, of course, because what he's done this weekend, he's done two things he's never done before: win his home race and win back-to-back F1 races in a season. That is massively.
is that right?
Yep, he has only done it across seasons, which was Abu Dhabi to Australia. But Oscar, we credit Oscar for being consistent. This is what Lando needs to do against his consistent teammate, is win back-to-back races. And while, yes, he may have been given a helping hand today by his teammate, he was still in a position to get that. He could have, in times gone by, been where Lewis Hamilton was, fighting for the last podium position. So championship back on, only 8 points now between him and Oscar at the top.
And if I'm not wrong, it's a sprint race at Spa, so we could see a new championship leader before the summer break.
Is it a Spa?
I could be wrong.
Well, I mean, look it up. I mean, you're the one who spat the stat out.
Well, we have a chat for that.
Come on, then, you correct us. I actually thought it was a 6-point gap, but Scott is right. It is an 8-point
No,
gap.
I'm not right. Matt's right. Give credit where it's due. Trumpets is right. It is indeed a a sprint weekend at Spa.
So we've got next weekend off, and then we've got Spa. Is that right?
We got 2 weekends off.
2 weekends off, and then Spa and Zandvoort, and then the summer break?
No, Spa and Hungary.
Oh.
Get it right, Spanners. Oh, my goodness.
That's why I have you guys. My goodness.
You're the host of an F1 podcast.
Whose motto is wrong but first?
Yeah, we go Spa, Hungary, summer break. End of August is Zandvoort, then Monza, then we do heading towards, of course, the latter end of Singapore and United States and stuff.
It's been a long season already. I've been loving it. I'm enjoying it, but I'm also looking forward to a proper holiday. I'm going to turn my phone off for 2 weeks, 2 solid weeks, and thankfully we've got a great crew this season who'll be able to sub in. Of course, Matt and Chris are like solid co-hosts, but we've also had Jono and Stuffey just doing great work, hosting and jumping in the co-host spot as well. And thank you to Jono and Matt for doing that British Grand Prix preview. And by the way, all of that is massively helped. We are all able to allocate time to Missed Apex podcast because we are Patreon supported. So support us at patreon.com/Missed Apex. $5 a month, and that will get you into our Patreon Discord, which is a really cool place to hang out. And because people are invested in that community, they're not mean. It's the nicest place to chat about Formula One on the entire internet. Also get an ad-free feed, so a link that you put into your podcast player, and then you can it's like a premium ad-free feed, and we'll do some extra bonus content as well. And you'll be the first to know about any live events like the Milton Keynes Formula Fast event that we did last night. It was great. We filled the venue out and we had a great time. Footage of that will come out later in the week. But thank you to Formula Fast, Milton Keynes, and the crew. If you are in the Milton Keynes area, the Formula Fast racetrack is just about the best indoor track in the country. They always vary their layouts. It's run superbly and it has fantastic pizza. I wouldn't know from yesterday because our patrons and our attendees ate their entire inventory of pizza, which they say has never happened before. So support us at patreon.com/Missed Apex. Oh, go on, please. If you join, I'll probably stop asking anybody else to join. And I'll never mention it again. Let's go to Verstappen. So interesting. Verstappen got on pole, and there was loads and loads of chat of it was the tractor chat again. Now I said our live show, a bit of a spoiler, and I was talking about how Verstappen hits that treble 20. If he wants to hit the bullseye, if you're going for the bullseye, whatever you're going for on a dartboard, Verstappen is the most consistent at getting it. So if you start blowing a fan across the dartboard, people's margin of error is bigger, except Verstappen's isn't. It's smaller. Whatever you chuck at Verstappen, he can adjust to it and hit that treble 20 over and over again. It's not that each dart is scoring more. I know he's fast, and he's probably one of the fastest in the world, fastest to ever race in Formula One. That's fine, but that's not what sets him apart from people. What sets him apart is that he's doing that thing, that hitting the 60, hitting the bullseye, more often than other people when there are challenges. 4 points in, he's still hitting the treble 20s, right? And he's still doing his outs on his doubles. But this weekend, that didn't happen in the race because they seemed to make this kind of late setup change that advantaged them in qualifying. And so he nailed his qualifying lap. That's great. But people were pushing this. He won in a tractor. He got qualifying tractor in a narrative again. And I don't think you're doing Verstappen any favors by doing this, because when he has 4 or 5 races without a pole, that's not him doing badly, is it? Like, that doesn't get mentioned. But as soon as he gets pole in an unfancied car, we do this miracle lap. He's just this reincarnation of what we thought Senna's godlike abilities was. And I think that does a disservice to what his actual talent is, which is consistently delivering what he can deliver, the maximum under different circumstances. But Matt, there was a late setup change that was a really interesting gamble from Verstappen's team.
Yeah, and this is sort of something we saw from a lot of the teams as they progressed from free practice 1 to 2 to 3. But overnight, Verstappen went to a lower downforce rear wing. And what the team had essentially discovered was that they gained more time by being quicker, because he went from not being fastest to being dead fastest in the speed traps. So they gained more time by being quick on the straights and giving up that time in the corner. The problem for them in qualifying was that the headwind was into the fast corners. So that gave them more downforce because the wind coming at them was faster, but it actually switched for today's race. So even before the rain, he was looking at a real challenge to keep the car on track. And once you throw the wet in there, the natural aerodynamic superior efficiency of the McLarens made itself exceedingly apparent. And he essentially burned up his first set of tires trying to stay with and keep ahead of Norris.
Okay, but let's not get away from the fact that he was overdriving in the race. So, yeah, he's trying to defend against Piastri, and it probably was impossible by the time he'd used up his inters, but he was kicking the rear end out, and I think it's nearly never the fastest way to drive a Formula One car is to have the rear end stepping out like that. But he also did have an off while defending. I think lap 11, he had an off. So if you have an off, then you're asking the car to do more things than it's able to do. And a lot of people had offs today. So, and then at the restart, he obviously was like over accelerated with too much steering lock on, which is a rare mistake for Verstappen, especially at slow speed. That's not something we tend to see Verstappen doing, but it's still a mistake. So I think it's okay to point out that a driver that we hail for being one of the most consistent, unrelentingly high-performing drivers has just had a day where stuff was going wrong, and he was audibly upset. And it could just be, it could just be a case of frustration and just overreaching. And all athletes do it. All athletes have moments where they overreach and things go wrong.
As I said kind of at the start when we mentioned Verstappen, I still think this was their only way of getting any form of a result this weekend, though, was taking this approach. Friday was nowhere. He was struggling to get the car turning in. I've never seen that Red Bull miss so many apexes in practice. It was absolutely horrendous. And then they made that setup change. They found more balance in the car, and they always knew it was going to be a risk. But why not risk starting on pole position, then risk starting from 7th or 8th, which is potentially where they would have qualified. But as I mentioned earlier, I think without that spin, and it's all ifs and buts, but I'm looking now, Hamilton, just before they pitted, Hamilton was a good 7 seconds, 8 seconds off of Max Verstappen in a Red Bull that he's struggling to control the rear end of. Yes, he would have eventually succumbed to the McLarens. Of course, Lando did overtake Verstappen, but then had that slow pit stop with the double stack.
Oh, yeah.
And Verstappen got back into P2, but he would have comfortably finished ahead of Nico Hulkenberg and Lewis Hamilton by the end in that tricky car. But the safety car restart, how much did that affect? How much? We know Max can be he can go hot very quickly. He can blow his top very quickly. How much did he lose his temper maybe with that safety car? And how good were his tyres as well? Because he literally came to a standstill. That's not got to be good for the safety car restart when you've come to a genuine standstill and cooled your tyres, even if it's just a degree?
Well, I think you're absolutely right here. I think we saw Verstappen go fully on tilt after Piastri's hijinks in the that last safety car restart, and it was an unusual error and reminiscent really of discovering that he's been put on hard tires without his knowledge in Barcelona. To me, it was like that level of thing. But I do want to defend Max here a little bit.
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah.
The strategy, as you correctly identified, go to the front and drive backwards as slowly as possible,
that's not bad.
was their best hope.
And also he's the most aggressive defender on the grid. So if you're going to back anyone to hang on to that kind of thing, it's Verstappen.
Yeah, no, I mean that was clearly their best choice, given their very limited palette of choices here that we're at best kind of with the Mercedes otherwise. But he was having to drive that car at the absolute limit, at 100%. There was no margin he could leave himself for anything, or else he was going to be back in 7th or 8th, back where Hamilton was. And that's eventually got the better of him in the race because there was just too much jeopardy for that to be possible in real life.
So Verstappen finishes P5. So he's now third in the constructors on 165. George Russell is on 147. So that's 18 behind. And Leclerc is on 119. Where does he have to finish to be out of his contract?
Outside the top 4, supposedly. Do you think Charles Leclerc and George Russell pitting on the end of the formation lap was them ensuring that Max doesn't finish outside the top 4?
It's Russell's job at stake, and it's Russell that's got to go ahead of Verstappen for him to break contract. So, yeah.
You mean Timu Button?
Hang on, yeah, no. So Russell, right? If we want to go away from Verstappen and go to Russell, because that seems like a pretty good place to go, and delay speaking about Ferrari for a minute. So George Russell, if we're believing that he needs to stay behind Verstappen to basically keep his job, or at the very least cost his employer 50 million in release fees for Verstappen, then he called an outrageously early switch to slicks and then had an off. Like, is he playing 8D chess? So let's not get into that conspiracy theory and say, look, when they were discussing whether to come in or not, here's my big beef. Alonso was already on track. Alonso was losing time in every single corner. It was not going well on the slicks. And they basically just went, YOLO, let's go.
And not just any slicks, the hard tire.
Yeah, what? Yeah, what was that?
There was a brilliant quote from his engineer, because he asked, he went, should we go to slicks? And his engineer came on and said, we're brave, but we're not suicidal, George.
But and
what happened literally a lap, obviously the radio message is always delayed, but literally they played that radio message and the next lap he's pitted.
Oh man, this is what we were saying a lot about Russell, and by we I mean me, last season against Lewis Hamilton, is he kept just trying to find what different thing you can do to get a result. And it was quite telling that he said, well, we're in P7. So he was basically saying from P7, who cares? Let's go for something. Let's go for glory. And I think it was his call to go to do that one stop at Spa, where he ended up getting disqualified for being underweight. This very much sounds like it was his call again. And so, okay, I don't quite blame him, because I think there is a mentality with a lot of athletes that they would rather finish last 10 times and win the tournament one time. These guys would rather be out the points 8 times but have one win, assuming they're not going for a title. But that temptation to go, let's have that victory at Spa, and I will. And if you could make a deal with the F1 gods, you say, right, let me win this race and then DNF for the next 5. I reckon most of the midfield would take that deal.
Yeah, undoubtedly, and especially when it's at your home Grand Prix. Like, you want to try and, I guess, finish on the podium, try and do something in what you no doubt is going to be a chaotic race. But I think, look, Mercedes just went wrong, not just with Russell, but with Antonelli. I don't know why they both gambled and put both of their drivers on slicks at the start of the race. Like, at least split your strategy. And George even said afterwards, he goes, it was 50-50 whether we went slicks or we went hards. for wet tyres. And he has blamed, and he has got a valid reason, that they spent obviously a considerable time under the VSC, so the track didn't necessarily clear as quickly as it should have done. So maybe those slicks would have come in a lot sooner than they eventually did. But even so, I mean, it was so noticeable, really, with how, particularly in the last sector, it was just way too wet for slick tyres to be any use in the first 5, 6, 7 laps of the race. You were going to lose so much time compared to the others.
Yeah.
It was a gamble option, but I think it was just such a low percentage move. And George, yes, there's all about gambling, but I mean, play the odds. That was such a low move. And I think a lot of people just decided to follow George into the pits and take his lead. I'm not sure I haven't heard from Charles if it was his decision, but Charles definitely followed George into the pits. And we know how his race panned out, similar to Hadjar, etc. Very few of those early pitters on the end of the formation lap actually had decent races today.
And I just want to get on top of that a little bit. I split strategies. If I'm a team, that's fine. If I have one driver who wants to be aggro and go for that slick tire, hope the conditions come to me and I can make that time up while everybody else pits, that's actually not a terrible choice. But please explain to me in tiny words, because I have a hard time understanding, why if I run a team, I put any rookie at the beginning of the race on a slick tire. Please explain that to me, because I really, really, really don't understand it.
The thing is, it was definitely the high risk tactic, because the track was dry. The track was wet, and it's not like a downpour in America. So if you have a downpour in Miami, it clears within a few laps and it will go. This is a soggy Sunday afternoon in Northampton. Yeah, and it wasn't particularly warm. It is muggy, but it's not like the 30, 40 degrees, heat of some Grand Prix. This was a day where it was never going to clear just from evaporation. It was going to clear from cars going over it. So it felt obvious that it was going to take a long time. And sure enough, the guys on the slicks really struggled. After 7 laps, Leclerc was 43 seconds down. 43 seconds down after lap 7. And then you go, that is a disaster. Surely they were seeing after a couple of laps, this isn't working, it's not going to get any drier. Let's just bite the bullet, stop chasing it. And I think they went for a sunk cost fallacy where they go, well, we've invested this much. If we just invest a little more, surely red 37 will come up on the roulette wheel. And so I think this is it's a reasonable transition to go over to Ferrari and Leclerc. What a horrible, horrible day from him then. I know he had bad luck, but I think he also drove poorly. He qualified quite well, apart from one corner in Q3. And we have to talk about his mentality and him beating himself up over the radio. But yeah, a horrible day for Ferrari. And Alex in our WhatsApp chat was saying, hey, this is terrible. Ferrari are Ferrarying really hard. Yet I correctly pointed out that this was still one of Ferrari's better weekends. Despite all of that, despite everything we're complaining about, despite Hamilton losing out on the podium through that bad strategy call and his own mistakes, and Leclerc being 43 seconds down after lap 7, that's one of the better weekends they've had.
It's funny because it's true. Oh my God. I mean, just to go back to your point about Charles, like just cut your losses. The problem is that they had to stick with it because the track by that point was starting to dry a little bit. The inters were starting to go a bit bald, and what was on its way very shortly? Another downpour. Yeah. So what's the point of putting him on a brand new set of inters that he's just going to completely kill before the rain arrives? So the decision was terrible from the get-go, and then it just spiraled from there from Charles.
Leclerc could have got 23 seconds down and then gone, no, this isn't working, and pit onto new inters and be in the same position.
Yeah, it was just an overall poor drive from Leclerc, but should get a lot of criticism. And Sainz was, not too happy at all afterwards because there were just some unnecessary moves for like P12 at the time. And it's like, Charles, we know you're racy, but come on, like it's not a good. Are you
saying his decision to go over the flashing arrow speed ramp while hitting a mushroom and then flying over Maggots and Beckett's wasn't the correct decision? Matt?
I, for one, enjoyed watching him launch his lawn care service in the middle of my British Grand Prix.
Oh, yeah. Well, because that's how you know you're a true Brit, isn't it? The rain comes down, you go, well, lawn needs it. Lawn needs it. I'll be getting mower out soon.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know if it was recoverable. I think it's acceptable for Ferrari to keep Lewis on the inters and put Charles on the slick tire, because that's a split strategy bet that you just make sometimes as a team when you're not sure. But if we're talking about people who got it right, there was only one team that really kind of got this right, and sadly, it was Aston with Stroll.
Why sadly?
Because wouldn't it have been better if, like, you know, they'd gotten it right with Lewis or, you know, with Verstappen, but they called the soft tire right. He was only on it for 4 laps. He made absolute hay of the people that he was stuck behind, and he was in a position to pit correctly for the inters when the rains came back. So, yeah, genius move all the way around. But yeah, I mean, if you make a bet like that and you lose, then you got to accept that you lost and not chase those losses all the way to the end of the race.
Okay, we've covered Hamilton's race a little bit in context of his battle with Verstappen. But actually, it was quite a messy British Grand Prix for Lewis Hamilton. He had that snap at Copse, and he ended up losing out a place to Russell, and he sort of got a great pass back on that. And then he did do that amazing double overtake at lap 18 around, I think, a Haas and George Russell as well. And then I think, lap 30, he was stalking Gasly. And yeah, it was a good overtake into a not normal overtaking place, but let's remember that that was an Alpine. But I think just overall, yeah, not great tactics from the team, a little bit scruffy. He could have had the same bad tactics from the team and still got a podium. And he could have made the same mistakes that he did without the bad tactics from the team and still got a podium. It took both the team and him to make those errors to lose that podium.
Yeah, that Ferrari in Lewis's hands was so flaky. It was so up and down today. There were stages where it looked like it was really good, and you could see the confidence in the way that he was driving it and making these moves into corners and feeling good on the brakes. Lewis evolved at Silverstone, and then there were moments where you're just like, oh my God, he's fallen off of a cliff. What's going on here? He was complaining about the rear end stepping out. There is a supposed reason for why his strategy was a little bit iffy. I'm not sure how correct it is, but it's from Fred Vasseur, and he has stated that they had GPS issues and they actually lost Lewis Hamilton's position out on track.
Oh dear Lord!
A large proportion of the race, which they said made, understandably, very difficult for them with him. So,
did any other teams lose their GPS position of their drivers?
Yeah, I know, exactly. It's a very Ferrari thing to happen, but you still got communication. You can still, I imagine, communicate.
Yeah, I mean, there's a new piece of technology, actually, that, I mean, it's a little outdated now, but I use it sometimes, my Mark 1 eyeball, and that sometimes serves me good enough.
Or just press the radio button. Lewis,
where are you?
Where are you? We've lost your tracking. Where are you out on track? But yeah, they left it. They were typical Ferrari again, too slow to react. Everyone could see his lap times just dropped off, and overall, it just strategy-wise cost him a comfortable podium.
Yeah, car 44, where are you? No, this is, and I think you're right. This is getting to the very heart of the fact that Ferrari as a team tends to be reactive. Comes with their developments. They look at other teams, they figure out what they can use, and then they take it onto their car. But again, with the strategy, they saw Stroll on the soft tire, but they drew the lesson. But Stroll was on it for 4 laps, in better conditions for the soft and worse conditions for the mediums when they struggle with tire degradation. So they are close, but they're not always drawing the correct conclusions. And yeah, I don't know how you fix that exactly, because it's not a major thing. You know, it's not like, oh, I've gotten onto the exit ramp when I'm trying to get on the highway kind of a mistake, but it's a significant and continuing problem. They really need to ferret out in order to get where they want to be.
The funny thing is that they actually had a good car this weekend, I think.
Yeah.
Now, no one would have beaten the McLarens, I still don't believe, in any condition, but they had a car that could have got on the front row. If it wasn't for the last couple of corners, we said Charles, the way that he reacted was very aggressive on himself. And I think that's partly because he knows the opportunities to have a decent car underneath him are few and far between, and he's not capitalised on it. But then yeah, it was just eventually wasted in the conditions today, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm glad he didn't ruin Hulkenberg's podium now. I wasn't then. I would have really, really enjoyed Hamilton. Before the race, he said, I'd love to go for a win. I'd love to go for a podium. He said, it's been so long, my soul needs it. Like, yeah, I feel like the Hamilton Fosse, the Ham Fosse. We've done this before. We did this in 09, 10, 11, 12, 13. We were very, very brave. And it's been 21, 2, 3, 4. One more year to go. Obviously, 26 regulations. Ferrari built around Hamilton, and Ferrari will bring the best engine, and everything will be okay. Everything will be okay. We can play a little game for a second here.
Whose fault is it?
Whose fault is it? Okay, so the first whose fault is it is between Fernando Alonso and his strategy team. Oh my goodness, the rant from Fernando Alonso. Talk about airing your dirty laundry. Like, I have no idea what the relationship between Alonso and Aston Martin is, but all his power in that thing. But to actually just go, you always get this wrong. You always do this. You always take the last Malteser. You always eat my last Rolo. It was very, very harsh on the radio. Now, we've seen him be forthright. We've seen him criticize other drivers. But I can't quite remember just him going on the radio and saying... I don't know if I've got the exact quote, but it was something like, how come you never get it right with me? You never get it right with me, specifically. It sounded very, very cutting.
We've been waiting for the real Alonso to show up.
Yeah,
and
the
today
real
he
Fernando.
made his first appearance. I love it. I love it that his radio is finally back to the peak Alonso form of the McLaren years and the Honda engine. Because that is always what I've really enjoyed best about him. And just the amount of just victim, of how much he must imagine himself being victimized at this team to the expense of his teammate Lance. It's just, you do wonder kind of what's been going on there behind the scenes a little bit, don't you?
Yeah, and just to do it so openly like that, I think obviously you can't control your emotions when there's a crash. I think you get the flash, and this is something, I talk about a lot in family life, talking to the kids. The flash of anger that consumes you, that's not your fault. That's something that happens to you. But the bang, so flash to bang, the bang is something you control. So the bang is like, that's your reaction to the world. I think that's a lot more understandable when it's a crash or you get hit. But, that felt more like something that's been brewing, coming up to the surface, and how you all argue with your spouse at home, but then when you go out or you're at a party or you're in a pub, you kind of save that and you kind of give a dirty look. We'll talk about this later. But he didn't do the let's talk about this later. He just did the full on, no, we're having this out now. I don't care how awkward it is, Randy. We're talking about that. I don't care if your friends are here or your boss is here. We're talking about this now. Sorry.
There's a button. It's marked radio. You gotta push it for people to hear that message. So I'm sorry. You talk about the flash?
Yeah.
Oh no. That was not a flash. That was something that was a slow burning fire. Exactly. In the walls.
That's the point I'm making. That's what I'm saying.
For hours.
That's what I'm saying.
Going on a while.
That's what I'm saying. That wasn't just an off the bat thing. So that was pretty wild, as the kids are saying. So there's a real whose fault is it, which is Lawson versus who else was on the inside of him there? Ocon versus Tsunoda. I think he also hit the pace car at some point this season. So in the long running saga of whose fault is it with Liam Lawson, I'm actually going to take a different tack here, and I'm going to say the good people, Visa, Cash App, RB, and their kind sponsors at Hugo. I don't think him and them and Lawson combined would ever be at fault for a crash. So I am going to blame Ocon and Tsunoda for existing to his left.
To be fair, I thought he was going to completely blame Esteban Ocon and completely absolve both Red Bull affiliated drivers.
Yeah. Thank you very much to Red Bull for their hospitality this weekend.
It's one of those 3-1 doesn't go.
Yeah.
I don't think. I actually think I probably put, if anything, a bit more blame on Yuki for putting his car there because that corner, I mean, on the inside, he's the one who's got the best view of what's occurring in front of him. Lawson is at the front.
I don't know. Scott, you're allowed to go and overtake. He went into a space that was free.
Go and overtake, but you're going into a space where you're going to be so acute on the inside there.
Was there a car in front of him, the space that he occupied?
Was there a car in front of him?
Yeah,
there was a car more than alongside him, ahead of him, Esteban Ocon, and you got Liam Lawson.
I think Tsunoda went into... I'm surprised at that. I think Tsunoda went into an empty space. I think you were allowed to do that. And then Lawson turned
You go into an empty space, but if that empty space is eventually going to close because of the way the nature of the track goes and where the racing line is and the cars...
I wasn't expecting
drivers
Ocon.
don't have visibility. I'm just saying percentages, and especially when Yuki as well, he's putting his car in an area where... I mean, come on, you've just had your best qualifying in quite some time. Just be a bit smarter. I don't think Lawson had any idea that there was a car on Esteban Ocon's inside. He knew the Haas was there, and he just expected Ocon to turn in, which Ocon couldn't go anywhere.
My general rule, as you know, in any three wide, is the third person of the party is generally going to be the one who causes the problem. And looking at it, yeah. Yuki caused the problem. Can we blame him for the crash? Well, no. We actually technically have to blame Lawson because he turned into the space Ocon was occupying. But he did that because he expected Ocon to turn into the space that Yuki was occupying.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing is that, it's obviously Lawson thought there was space for Ocon to go into. But no, I think just before the incident happened, they were three wide and all of those drivers had legitimately moved into a space and they were fine. Lawson is the one that crossed across them to make contact.
That's incorrect. They were not three wide. Esteban Ocon went and hit the apex of turn 3, and then he drifted out a little bit because he's got that acute angle, as the law of physics takes you. And Yuki then was a wider angle and straightened out into a space that when you've got cars ahead of you and you've got more of a full picture of the situation, you should realize there that I know that even on the sim, that inside line there is so risky.
Well, hang on. Tsunoda didn't get hit, right? Did he?
Oh, by luck. Luck, because Esteban Ocon had nowhere to go.
Obviously, we can agree to disagree, but I just think Tsunoda pulled alongside and was in a space that was valid, didn't get hit, and then I'm surprised that Tsunoda is being blamed for that. I'm going to have to rewatch it though. I am going to have to rewatch it, and I will come back to you, Scott. I'll come back to everyone.
I'm only putting blame on it because we have to do that here. We can't absolve blame. Just like there's another one where a certain driver now has 100% record of having contact with their teammates.
Are we talking about the Haases?
Yes, a certain Esteban Ocon has now got that 100% record, that faultless record of making car contact.
Has Esteban Ocon hit every single teammate he's ever had?
He has.
Is that the only driver?
Every single teammate he's had has hit him.
Oh,
an equal way you can say this,
Matt. That is true though. He had he had super crashy relationships with all his teammates. Did him and Alonso come together as well?
Yeah.
Oh man, I know he came.
Really, you're going to blame Alonso.
Every other race he came together with Perez as well, and Perez has never hit his teammate in any other.
So much so they banned them from racing against each other.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was hacking there to come to the result that I wanted.
I knew you were.
So,
or were you cherry picking?
We can do, with this private argument we were having with my kids earlier. So, Behrman versus Ocon. I think Behrman's having a bit of a horrible little period at the moment. And just a really silly dive bomb on the inside of your teammate, lost control, and that is all on him.
That wasn't. No, that was Ocon on the inside. Behrman was on the outside.
No, it was Behrman on the inside.
Was it?
Yeah.
Did we get that wrong?
I've got the steward's report is in the notes.
Okay, go on then. Go on, read the steward's report out, man.
Oh, hang on. I will read it to you as I scroll down.
We weren't sure either, Scott. So when we were watching it was like, who's on the inside? Yeah, and it was Behrman.
It's disappeared on me.
I thought you were going, oh no, it's Ocon.
Okay, so unless we find out later that it was any different, we'll assume for now that it was Behrman down the inside. So we had Bortoletto having his crash. I think the rookies had a really bad time here. So I think one incident we haven't covered in the Whose Fault Is It is Hadjar crashing into the back of Kimi Antonelli. I know in person, Matt was blaming Hadjar. I'm really, really struggling to blame Hadjar, Scott, because if you look at the onboard, it did look like Antonelli just appeared from nowhere.
Yeah, and in the steward's report, Kimi has also stated that he braked a bit earlier than he normally would into that corner. But the visibility, I mean, that was why the safety car was brought out. It was unbelievable. And the stewards, normally you'd expect them to be a little bit harsher, I think, in those scenarios. But no, they were like, you literally could not see a damn thing. Like, you was underneath his car before you saw his red lights on the rear of that Mercedes. So, yeah, he couldn't do any more there. And I'm surprised in those conditions that there aren't more crashes, to be honest with you, because of just how bad the visibility can get.
Well, this is, once again, I've looked up the stewards, and I actually made the case in the notes that this might be more on Antonelli than Hadjar, because it says both drivers said that visibility was poor. The driver of car 12 stated he slowed down earlier than normal due to the heavy rain, which would be Antonelli.
I appreciate you were reading, but Scott just said that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed that. I was looking stuff
I appreciate both your diligent work. Okay, so I think I would like at this point to move on to the podium. And this is the part of the show where we give out awards. We start off with the bad thing award, so we get to be armchair experts, and then we move on to the good thing award, so we get to end on a lovely, positive note. So I have to say that was a British Grand Prix where, again, the British Grand Prix is one. Had it been bone dry, it's still an opportunity for great racing, and I think it's a race where you can, like Verstappen, go into qualifying going, right, let's get this one lap pace and try and defend a position, but let's go racing. But it's also a track where, you know, you can have side-to-side racing, wheel-to-wheel action over multiple corners. It features literally the best section of racing of a track in Formula One, full stop, all the way from Abbey through the village, the loop, Aintree, down the Wellington Straight, left into Brooklands, round Luffield and into Copse. That is the best racing section of racetrack in the entire world, and Silverstone should be rebooked for 1,000 years. And then you throw in rain and you add a little bit of chaos in there as well. So let's speak to my panel here and find out who they think hit the apex. We're doing the good thing first. No, bad thing, so we can be positive later, right? That's how it works.
Oh no, you missed the apex.
Only been doing this 11 years. You'd think I'd get to grips with it by now. We've got Scott, Stuffey here. Scott does live watch-alongs for Formula One. And he went on a big rant at our live show. Oh, the broadcast's rubbish. Oh, it's terrible. Put the case of why everything was bad with watching it on TV. And then said, oh, by the way, I do an alternative commentary watch-along, which is very good.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, tune into my watch-alongs. They're successful. I hit a brilliant milestone this weekend, over 50,000 subscribers. Nice. So, yeah, absolutely love it. And if you want a different viewing experience with live data and alternative commentary and likewise a brilliant community just as we get here at Missed Apex, give it a go. But my Missed the Apex award this weekend is someone who didn't even start the race, and that is Franco Colapinto, because he literally missed the apex in the last corner in Q1. It's just not going well for him, and that might be the last that we ever see of Colapinto in an F1 car, if maybe Flavio Briatore has his way.
Yeah, Flavio Briatore in qualifying when there was that crash puts his head in his hands, and I was like, oh, no, come on. You want to replace him anyway. Why are you pretending? Oh, no.
Oh, no, I can now have to go and ask for his sponsors that if they want him to retain the seat, they need to pay an extra 10 million.
Yeah. Oh, no, the thing I was going to do anyway has been validated by that crash. Excellent. Go and follow Scott. All his links will be in the show notes below. Matt, Trumpets. If you want to follow Matt, he's at my house. So just pop around. He's here. He's in my house now. So Matt, people can follow you at MattPT55 on Blue Sky.
And pretty much all your socials, really. Mm-hmm. That's more or less the handle I've had for mostly ever.
Do you have a TikTok?
I do.
Really?
Yes, I don't do anything with it, but I technically have a TikTok. Yes, you can follow me and say hi.
No,
is it full of tire content? That's what the listeners are wondering.
No, it's not full of any content because I just haven't gotten around to making it yet. But it is there.
Matt, just prepared.
Just from creator to creator, There's a niche there that you need to take advantage of, Trumpets.
Matt had this whole tyre thing prepped for the live show yesterday, and you and Alex just kiboshed it. I had a running order, and then you and Alex just went off. And I was like, okay. And the show never even officially started. We did an hour and 20 minutes of pre-show, and then we had a drink, and then we did the quiz. We never started the show.
My bad.
Yeah, that's on me, guys. Sorry about that. So, Matt, who missed the Apex for you?
Well, I've only thought about this in humorous context, so I apologize. I'm sure there are people who missed more Apexes, but for me, and this is a double-edged sword, I'm going to give it to Ollie Behrman for hitting as many things as possible, but yet somehow still finishing the race as the only rookie there. So, you know, I'm not really sure what exactly to do with that, but yeah, come on.
Okay, not sure what that was, but go and follow Matt by clicking the links in the show notes below. Go and follow me this time. Go and click on my Instagram link and follow my adventures in the paddock. After 38 years of watching Formula One and jealously looking at all the stuff on TV and all the people in and around the paddock, I was able to have a little wander around, be in a pit garage, lifelong dream fulfilled, and I was unashamedly excited about it on Instagram. So go and follow me there. Spanners ready. Follow my TikTok. It's Missed Apex F1. I am going to change that to Spanners F1 because I'm the only one who posts on it. So go and follow me there as well. We'll put links in the show notes. And my Missed the Apex award is going to go to, I'm really sorry about this. There was two, right? And A, people think I'm biased towards Hamilton, and B, people think I hate Verstappen. And they were my two candidates. But I am leaning towards, yes, Verstappen did have a very bad weekend, but Hamilton just blew a podium that was in his reach that he's been looking for all season, that would have given him and the team and his media profile the momentum he needed. Of all the misses this season, this is definitely the worst. And I was really craving that podium. And it was there. It was there for the taking, and him and the team were unable to deliver. So, unfortunately, Lewis Hamilton gets my Missed Apex award this weekend. But we get to end on a nice positive. And I will say before we start, everyone gets 2 Thing of the Weekend awards. And we all know why. So I'll start and we'll say, Spanners, what was your Thing of the Weekend, or who hit the Apex for you? You get 2 options, Spanners. Oh, do I? Oh, thank goodness. I was so struggling to choose between the 2. Number 1, Nico Hulkenberg for that fantastic podium. Finally, after 872 Grand Prix, he didn't crash into the castle. He didn't hit Lewis Hamilton. The princess was in this castle, and he secured that podium. I would say my second choice, though, for Thing of the Weekend, it's got to be to that McLaren car. They have produced an absolute demon. It doesn't matter, really. I mean, there was the odd glitch in the Canadian Grand Prix, but once again, whether it comes to qualifying, tyre wear, wet weather, dry weather, they have an insanely dominant machine at the moment. So well done to McLaren for consistently bringing that weapon to Grand Prix after Grand Prix. Scott, what was your Thing of the Weekend?
My Thing of the Weekend...
Oh, you get 2. You get 2.
I know. I'm going to go, firstly, Silverstone. I gave it to the Red Bull Ring last time out. What a track.
Yeah, it's a
great
track.
It's my British bias. I don't care.
Yeah, I don't care
I
either.
love this circuit.
It's the best track
the
in
race
the universe,
that we just saw. And I think we were still seeing a brilliant race in dry conditions as well, because it just provides great moments and great races.
I know, and there were some people saying, yeah, but Glamodon in the Bataxalong system has got a great track for its 0G F racing. But no, I think that comes a close second to Silverstone in the title of best Grand Prix track in the universe.
Yeah, and it's one of the few tracks where we actually have space for these modern F1 cars to go side by side and actually have some overtakes on merit. The last one for me is a bit unexpected, I think, from many.
Who's it going to be?
Pierre Gasly.
You were meant to use the second one for Hulkenberg so that we didn't get yelled at by people.
You've already said Hulkenberg, and we praised Hulkenberg at the start.
I know,
and I've praised Hulkenberg
The reason I said 2 was
Yeah.
the running joke, so we could all say Hulkenberg. I did.
Oh,
I did.
you didn't let me in on the
I
joke.
set it up at the beginning. I set it up in the intro. Okay, fine. Why Gasly?
Oh, Nico Hulkenberg.
Oh, you get 3. Why Gasly?
I think Gasly is doing wonders in that Alpine. I mean, how he's putting that car in Q3 regularly at the moment. Yes, struggles a bit in the race because it's like the Haas of old where it struggles with the race pace and he's in a team that's just in disarray. But, I mean, he finished P6 today. And a great overtake on Stroll at the end on the last lap. He's doing wonders in that. And I don't think he's getting enough credit where it's deserved at the moment. I think he's going quite under the radar.
And Matt 2 Rumpets, who hit the apex for you.
Well, I get 2, right?
You get 2.
Possibly 3.
I don't know if you're not. It depends which system you're working on. But why don't you give us your first one?
My first one is going to go to the strategist at Sauber for correctly calling Hulkenberg's pit stops to an absolute
fair enough.
T. That was just chef's kiss right there. My second one has to go to the strategist at Aston that called Stroll's race because, boy, did you expect him to finish in the top 10? No, you did not. Did he finish? Yes, absolutely. It was just genius and at the same time provoking Alonso's radio, which entertains me greatly. So well done, Aston, on that one. Hi, Scott.
No, I was going to say another thing on Lance Stroll that could have been this weekend, thing in the weekend, is his radio. I think he drives tremendously well today, and it's a long time that we've seen that from Stroll. But his radio at the end was something along the lines of his engineer said, "What a great drive today," and he's like, "Yeah, not bad for driving an absolute dog."
Oh my God, really?
At the moment.
It
was stronger words than that, but I was just like, okay, fair enough.
See, Stroll hasn't had any kind of result, hasn't really done anything for about 18 months, if that. And I know that if he'd have got this podium, we'd have had so many like Canadians just in there going, "See, you were wrong this entire time. This is the result that counts. Forget the previous 45 or whatever." So I was just like, "Oh, please, F1 gods, spare me. And they did. Matt, you have 18 more thing of the weekends left.
Probably. You mentioned the McLaren car, but I'm going to hand it to the Ferrari designers for the first half of their update and the floor that made the car look genuinely like a contender. And I'm just going to remind everybody out there who's in need of some hopium or copium that the rest of that update should be coming at Spa. So if it's as good as the first half, we could see actually a genuine contender.
Don't give them hope, Trumpets. Just don't let them.
This is a good thing. I'm supposed to be doing this now, aren't I?
Yeah. And of course, your third vote would be.
Oh, this would be my fourth vote now.
Right.
Oh yeah, Nico Hulkenberg.
Great choice, Nico Hulkenberg. And stop it, live chat. Someone just went, "Who cares about some old bloke finishing P3?" That is very, very mean. Now, I'm personally, Hulkenberg, never really been a fan of his, but he's definitely deserved more flowers. I think that's a young people phrase. He's got his flowers today, I believe, is an appropriate Gen Z thing to say. Well done, Nico Hulkenberg. This has been Missed Apex. This has been our British Grand Prix race review. Now, we've got some interesting content coming up this week. Christian Pedersen is going to come on and do some news with us. There was an F1 fan survey that we want to dig into. The Encampment have already recorded a historical look back, looking back at the career of Jenson Button, and we'll have some footage from our live show to go out as well, all preparing us for the next Grand Prix. But wherever we see you next, work hard, be kind, and have fun. This was Missed Apex Podcast. It's so muggy, even though we've had rain. Aye, but the garden needed it, didn't it? Oh, it's a very close heat, isn't it? It's a very close heat.